Good morning. Hi, this is Becky with Rochester Mom, and I am here this morning with Jenna Tauble at First Alliance Credit Union. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning, Becky.
It is great to see you again for our first video in 2022. Hard to believe that we're already 6 weeks into this year. I do not know. Some weird time space continuum warp, I guess. But this morning we are talking all about travel. We have both heard, you've heard, I've heard that families are ready to travel again after two years of putting a lot of big trips and things on hold. So people are ready to travel, and we're going to talk all about everything you need to know about traveling in 2022. And you guys put together an awesome post. We'll link it in this video, but let's just jump into some of these questions that we have about it. So like we said, it sounds like families are really starting to plan for travel again. What are some of the ways that families can safely travel this year?
Yeah, so obviously, if you're going to travel, you need to make sure that you do take the appropriate precautions around COVID. Unfortunately, it is still something we have to be considerate of and take into account as we're moving about. It is still a risk factor, I guess, to consider as you're making travel plans. So that means, vaccinations, get those, carry your vaccination card with you if you're going to travel. Just make sure that you know what the local ordinances and requirements are for masking in the places that you're planning on staying and traveling to, so that you're prepared for that. But of course, social distancing is still a really helpful tool to help kind of mitigate those risks as you're traveling to places that you're, not normally in, right? So you may want to kind of consider some options that allow for this as you're planning your travel vacation, though, and those can also at times kind of help your vacation budget too at the same time, right? So maybe maybe this year you want to consider renting a cabin on the lake instead of visiting theme parks that maybe have a little bit more crowds to them, just to kind of help maintain that social distancing and kind of lower the risk factor that you'll catch COVID while you're traveling, because you do not want to end up stuck somewhere because you've got COVID. That would just like skyrocket your vacation budget. Like,
yes, right,
because you can't go somewhere if you
right,
travel on a plane.
What a buzzkill to end up getting sick while you're on vacation. No, I love that tip about make the trip the destination. So go somewhere where you're actually, what you're doing is visiting the actual outdoor space. So like mountains, beach, anything like that, a hiking vacation, something where you're skiing or something like that, where you're planning, your actual vacation is planning to be outside. We took a couple of those. We went to Florida. Honestly, once you get to the beach, you're just staring at the ocean. There's no one else around you. And same thing with the mountains. We went to Colorado. That's it. There's no COVID up in the mountains when you don't see anyone. So, feeling really safe and still having a great time and making those family memories. So what seems to be the best way to travel when planning to travel this year?
Yeah, I mean, so your travel options really haven't changed since before the pandemic, but really in order to kind of avoid those crowds, like we were talking about, that's kind of the key to think about here is, so you could consider driving for your vacation destination instead of flying, because then you're kind of avoiding the airports, you're avoiding, the crowded airplanes. And you can kind of turn the trip into the destination into part of the vacation plan, and maybe stop and visit some places that you wouldn't normally see because you would have flown instead of driven, right? So you can kind of make it into a road trip family vacation instead of flying to a destination. But, driving can save you money over flying oftentimes, but not always. So it's going to be really important as you're trying to make this decision for your family vacation to take into consideration the cost of driving versus flying and whether or not which one is going to be better for your budget too, as well as safer for you and your family. So really the amount that it's going to cost you to drive is going to be kind of dependent on the fuel efficiency of the vehicle you plan to take with you. Are you going to need several days to get to where you're going? And so you're going to have to pay for a hotel stay one or two nights along the way. So those are just some things you want to consider as you're kind of putting together your travel plans and figuring out how much this is going to cost you on top of planning for COVID safety, right? So that's kind of the takeaway
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. So my family, we love a road trip and we've taken several road trips and yeah, it really is. You can do a extremely economical and affordable vacation if you plan it out to do a road trip. There are some destinations that just can't be driven to or would be too hard to be driven to given time constraints or whatever. But for example, Rapid City, the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, you can do Colorado in a day. You can drive to Colorado in a day. We've done it. Lots of different places. The west coast of Michigan has great beaches. You can drive to Florida too. There's lots of different places that you can drive to. And when you drive, you can plan out great places to stop. We love stopping at Love's truck stops. They're really, there's something for everyone. They're extremely clean. They are so friendly. We know what to expect every time we're in them. They're very well lit. They're safe. They're just off the interstate. And so that's my little road trip tip there for you. Always stop at a Love's. Like we literally plan out like our stops, like, okay, we're going to stop at the Love's off of highway or, exit number 78 or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, you can definitely make it affordable and fun and convenient that way too. So
absolutely.
Okay. What about if someone is nervous about plans changing and needing to cancel the trip? Someone gets sick, plans change, something happens. Any advice in case plans need to change last minute?
Yeah. So, delays and cancellations in flights, especially, are much more common now than they have been, whether that's because people are getting sick and can't make the flights. And so the flights get canceled because there's not enough passengers, or maybe the airlines just don't have the number of staff they need to handle the flight, whatever it may be. There's still a lot of struggle going on in the airline industry. And so kind of expect some delays and cancellations to pop up in your trip if you do plan to fly, as we kind of continue to work through the pandemic. But if you do fly for your vacation destination, to kind of help mitigate possibly losing money, you should really consider purchasing some kind of travel insurance to help kind of protect your wallet in case you do have to cancel or change your travel plans last minute because of an illness or because your flight got canceled or, whatever it is. The one thing that you do want to make sure to pay attention to when selecting travel insurance, if you do choose to go that route, is to make sure you find a travel insurance plan that does cover pandemic related cancellations. Many don't, and they're very explicit about that up front, that they don't. So make sure that you're paying attention to what you're purchasing. And the plans that do cover those do tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they can bring you a great peace of mind when you're traveling, to know that if something does happen and you can't make your flight for whatever reason, that you'll get that money back. And especially if you're traveling with a large group of people, or your plane ticket was more expensive than you anticipated, whatever that is, it can just be a good peace of mind. So that is definitely something I would encourage people to look into if they're planning to take airlines for travel, for sure.
Yeah, it can be hard to kind of think about, okay, so we've got lodging, travel, food, everything, and then budgeting on top of that, extra insurance. It can be like, it can be easy to think about skipping it. And in some cases you might not need it, but in those cases where you do, it becomes invaluable. You do not want to lose out on that. So especially like you said, those vacations that are further away, that are more expensive, where it will be super inconvenient and really expensive for you to miss out on that. Definitely travel insurance. So speaking of budgeting, what are your best tips for planning a family travel budget?
Yeah, so it's going to be really, really important first out the gate to determine all of the costs that are going to be involved with your vacation, right? And don't overlook the little things either. So are you going to fly or drive, and how much is that going to cost you? And you write that plane ticket versus the gas. Are you going to buy that travel insurance? If you take the flight, make sure you include that in the cost of your plane ticket, essentially. Really think through the activities that you plan to do while you're on vacation, and what are those costs? And maybe you can even save a little money on some of those costs by going at lower activity times for, the museum you want to go to, find the time of day where there's less people, because that will help, with the COVID risk, but also you might get a little bit cheaper price to get into the museum, for example. Of course, those lodging costs are going to be a big factor in your vacationing budget, right? Whether it's hotel, Airbnb, you're going to do a campsite, those all have a cost associated with them. So make sure you plan ahead for those. And even, are you going to be able to cook meals because you're renting an Airbnb, or are you going to have to rely on restaurants because you're going to be doing more of a road trip scenario? You're not going to have access to a kitchen. So those are going to change how much you need to plan and budget for. And then what kind of souvenirs do you plan to purchase? You want to have a little bit of, room in your budget to be able to afford some of the fun trinkets and things that your kids are going to want to buy, or, that fun t-shirt from the concert in the park you guys went to, or, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you plan for that so that you have ample, so you know what you're spending, and you're not surprised when you come back home and go, oh my God, we spent $1,000 more than we thought we would. Like, you don't want to be in that position.
It's an icky feeling. Yeah.
Right.
And then from experience.
I think we've all made that mistake. Oh, we'll just go figure it out along the way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But that's why, my second kind of tip really then is you want to make sure that you have a plan for how you're going to pay for everything ahead of time as well, because that'll just, again, give you that peace of mind while you're on vacation, that you know how this is going to be paid for. You don't have to worry about that big bill coming after the fact on your credit card or something like that. So, do you have money saved that you're going to be using? How much is that? And if your trip is a ways out still, you might even be a good time to start saving some money for a vacation now, right? And we at First Alliance, we have a special savings account specifically for vacations. It's a club account, which just kind of helps you save a little bit better and plan for those ahead of time. But it's just any savings you can use, it's less you have to finance on a credit card or a loan or something. So that's always going to be helpful. But if you do plan to use credit cards, whether it's to finance the whole trip or just part of the trip, know ahead of time how much you're willing to put on that card and how much you can truly afford to pay back monthly after your vacation.
Yes.
So that you have that budget, even though you're using, instead of saving, you're putting on the credit card, you still have to plan for that expense after the fact. So, and the same thing goes, a lot of people will use a personal loan to finance a vacation, especially if it's one they've been wanting to take, and it's maybe overseas or something that's going to be a little bit more expensive. But just really make sure you just have a really clear understanding of what your trip is going to cost you, so that you know how much you'll need to kind of save or plan to pay back over time.
Yep. And in the post that we're referencing in this video here, there is a super helpful budget family vacation budget planner. There we go. That you can print out and you can fill out, and you can use it as kind of your worksheet to ensure that you have a really comprehensive understanding of where your money is going to go on vacation, and fill it out with a spouse or partner too, so you are on the same page. There's nothing worse than, having disagreement about what you're going to spend on vacation. So planning that out beforehand, super great way to just make sure that your vacation is totally seamless and you have a great time, because travel is back 2022. Here we go. So Jenna, thank you so much for filling us in with these great 2022 travel tips, and we will see everyone later and talk to you next time.